Good morning. My name is Grandma Ginny, and I am with RSVP of Dane County. I'm a foster grandparent, and when we can be in the school, I like to help out with reading there. But today, we're going to read from a book on the internet. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen with you. The book we're going to read today is called The Ghost of Donley Farm. And this is a story about Rebecca, the red-tailed hawk. She is not afraid of ghosts. One night, she bravely ventures into the barn to meet the famous ghost of Donley Farm. But when she finally meets him, Rebecca is surprised to discover that this ghost is much more familiar than she'd expected. Join Rebecca as she stays up late to talk with her new friend and find out what they have in common and how they are different. Rebecca, the red-tailed hawk, had a perfect home. It was in an open grassland area with a few scattered trees where she had a good view of all directions. She could see the golden wheat fields, the green meadows, and the shiny blue water from the ponds. Her favorite place to sit was on an old wooden fence alongside the Donley farm. From here, she was sure to spot a mouse or two scurrying through the tall thistle and ragweed. It was a perfect habitat for a hawk. See, here's the farm, the old barn. There's Rebecca on the fence. There's a little mouse. There was not a part of the Donley farm Rebecca had not explored. She knew every mole hole in the grass fields, every prickly Osage orange tree that lined the farm property, and even the buzzard clan. Here's the buzzard clan. The buzzard clan that roosted in the ancient white oak tree behind the homestead. But there was one thing Rebecca had never seen, and that was the famous barn ghost of the Donley farm. The fields, here, we got to start over here. Rebecca had heard that this ghost was nocturnal. Nocturnal animals come out only at night. Unlike Rebecca, she was diurnal, and active during the day. She wanted to see if this ghost really existed. She would need to stay up past the setting sun and explore when the Big Dipper could finally be seen in the dark, open sky. Was she scared? Of course not. Rebecca knew that her sharp talons and her pointy, curved beak made her one of the fiercest raptors in the sky. The fields were starting to get dark with the rising moon. Fireflies began to sprinkle light first here, then there, all across the grassland. Bullfrogs at the pond made music together. The air was chilly and wet. Night had come. What was that? Rebecca heard a terrifying noise. It came from the creaky old barn. Rebecca was sure that the ghost had made the noise. She immediately took off to find out for herself. As she approached the dark and scary barn, she began to wonder if she should turn around. Should she fly back to her safe resting spot on the old maple tree? She was a mighty creature of the sky, but the screeching howl from the dark barn made her shiver with flight. She did become afraid. She shivered with fright. But she flew to a small open window and looked into the barn. There she is, peeking in. There's the moon and all the stars. Sure enough, a white figure was in the corner. She tried to see the ghost more clearly, but she could not see in the dark. Her eyesight was much better during the day. The ghost, however, noticed her and quietly came closer. Rebecca was suddenly scared, even with her sharp talons and pointy beak. The ghost moved closer without making a single sound. Rebecca saw that it had 2 legs, a beak, wings to help it fly, and most importantly, feathers. A bird, just like her. It had sharp talons and a sharp curved beak. Like her, it was a raptor, a meat-eating bird of prey. There's this little sharp beak. It's so light you can hardly see it. "What are you doing here in my house?" asked the strange ghost bird. "I beg your pardon," Rebecca whispered back, "but I wanted to see if there really was a ghost living in Donley's barn." Laughed the white, glowing animal. "I am not a ghost. Can't you see? I am a bird. I have been called a ghost my whole life, but I'd rather be called a barn owl. My name is Bernard." Suddenly, Rebecca felt silly for being afraid of another bird, but she still didn't understand why she had never met Bernard. "Why don't you come out and fly during the day, like all the other normal animals?" Rebecca asked, trying not to be rude. She was thinking about the singing bluebirds, the slithering garter snakes, and the buzzing bees that come out during the day. There's a little buzzing bee, and there's the bluebird. He's blue on one side and pink on the other. There's a snake. What else is there? Butterfly, maybe some mushrooms. There's another bee. Oh, look at here, a little hummingbird. But the hawk and the owl aren't alike. "I was wondering the same thing about you," responded Bernard. Rebecca seemed confused, so Bernard said, "All of the animals I know are out and about at night. For example, Silas, the smelly skunk, or Big-eared Bart, the brown bat. And don't forget about my favorite snack, the delicious field bowls." "Silas, the smelly skunk? I've never heard of him or smelled him." "Of course you've never smelled him. Most birds cannot smell very much." They both laughed because it was true. Their beaks were good for tearing meat, but they were not like noses. They could smell nothing. There's the smelly skunk, and there's the bat named Bart, and there's the little bowl. Ooh, might get caught. "I see Silas every now and again, and I can sure hear him before he is even in sight," Bernard continued. Rebecca laughed again. She also had an excellent sense of hearing. She was often surprised at how loud the other animals were when they ran in the field or flapped their wings overhead. Even when these animals tried to be quiet, Rebecca could easily hear them making noise. "But how about you? But how do you see, Silas?" asked Rebecca in amazement. "I can barely see you, and you are only a few feet away and all white." "Really? Bernard asked. He was very surprised. I can see you perfectly, he added. So they're a little bit alike and they're a little bit different, aren't they? At first, Rebecca did not believe Bernard. She took a closer look at his eyes, at those shiny eyes. Bernard had enormous eyes. They were like two big brown eggs bulging from his soft feathers. But how on earth do you see during the day? Bernard asked. The bright sun burns my eyes and everything is blurry. Oh, I can see fantastically well in the day, Rebecca proudly declared, regaining her confidence. I can see the red glimmer of the ruby-throated hummingbird, the orange scales of the fluttering monarch, and the blue blossoms of the chicory along the road. Color? Bernard exclaimed. My eyes help me see shapes at night, but I do not see colors. And anyway, Rebecca added, the sun does not bother me so much because I have a ridge over my eyes that helps block out the bright light. A ridge over her eyes. Bernard looked closely at her face and noticed that it was true. Rebecca had a long bump over her eyes. His face was flat, like a disc or a plate, except for his bulging eyes. Oh, excuse me, I read that wrong. His face was flat, like a disc, except for his bulging, egg-like eyes. Eyes like eggs, can you imagine that? Blink, blink. Rebecca was not used to being up so late and was getting sleepy. She started to struggle to keep all three eyelids open. When she opened all three back up, Bernard was gone. He flew off to go hunting. Bernard, she whispered. Bernard, she shouted a little louder. He'd flown away without her even hearing a sound. He must be hungry and off to find some food, thought Rebecca. But how did he fly away so silently without my noticing? Perhaps it was those soft feathers that covered his whole body, even his legs. Rebecca looked at her own feathers. They were not as soft, and they made noise when she flapped in the wind. But her rigid feathers helped her to soar high in the sky. So here are Rebecca's rigid feathers, and here are Bernard's soft feathers. And see, she doesn't have feathers on her legs. She's got bare legs. Oh, look here. Then she looked at her bare, scaly legs and shivered. Night sure is chilly. I wish my legs were more like Bernard's and covered with feathers. Then she remembered how hot the sun could be on her scaly legs during the day. She was happy her legs were bare. She would surely be too hot with feathery legs on a sunny day. Look at the owl has feathery legs all the way down to his feet. And here's a bear there. I think Bernard is a wise old owl for hunting at night, thought Rebecca. After all, he can see and hear better in the night. He can fly silently, and he stays warm with his soft feathers in the cool evening air. If we both hunted for food right now in the same field, one of us would go hungry. If I come out in the day and he comes out at night, we never have to worry about competing with each other for food. So here she is in the day, and there is Bernard hunting at night. And there's the barn in both pictures. And what else? Stars. Oh, I know the fence. The thought of food made Rebecca realize that she needed rest. She had a big day of hunting tomorrow, and boy, was she tired. Rebecca decided it was time to fly back to her favorite resting spot in the red maple tree. It had broad branches for her to perch safely and thick leaves to block out the chilly sting of night. On windy nights, she could watch the helicopter seeds sputter through the air and across the field. They looked just like a bird flying. Look at those helicopter seeds. I bet you see those in your yard or in your park or on the sidewalk or at school. Watching the maple seeds dance across the sky in the glow of the moon, Rebecca spotted a distant shape, swooping, diving, plunging, sliding, and sweeping through the open air. She knew it was the ghost of the Donley farm. He was looking for his own lunch in the busy night. There, that's not a ghost, is it? That's Bernard the owl. Then at the end of this book, there are a lot of details that would be good for your science class. If you wanted to look up the details about a skunk or a bluebird or fireflies or a barn owl or a hawk or even a garter snake, it's in the back of the book. It tells you what raptors like to eat, raptor diets. I would not like to eat what raptors eat because they eat raw meat. And then they have some more fun facts and different, what they call adaptations, the things that are changed between one animal and another to make their life what it is. See, here's the difference in the eyes, and there's the difference in being awake and asleep, and it shows you their beaks. So if you go to the library, you can get that book from your library lady. That's all for today. Thank you very much for listening to the book. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to remember the name, it's The Ghost of Donley Farm. Goodbye.